In the south of France at Arles, traditions of the Camargue region are brought back to life every year on the 1st of May. In the ancient Roman arena, bulls and horses are united with their breeders, who celebrate the Festival of St. George with traditional games. Created by the Rhone Delta, the Camargue is truly a unique region of France, made up of vast stretches of flat land, beaches, rice fields, and swamps. This natural reserve is home to many animal species. Among them are the bulls and horses that live here in harmony with this wild land. Some men, too, are at one with this natural setting and its inhabitants. They are the cowboys of Provence. They're called the Gardians. They watch over herds of bulls and horses and work in ranches called manades. Founded in 1512, the Gardians Guild celebrates annually their ancestral profession. On Labor Day, they pay homage to their patron saint, St. George. On that day, the people of the Camargue gather in the ancient Arles arena to admire the Gardians' horsemanship and their display of mastery over the bulls. To the rhythm of tambourines and Provencal flutes, the opening of the equestrian games follows a well-established ritual. With the Queen of Arles riding with him, the president of the guild hands the Guardian's banner to the ceremony captain, who is nominated each year. Originally simple agricultural workers, the cattlemen of the Camargue acquired their status of nobility through one of the great figures of bull breeding, the Marquis Folco de Baroncelli. Among other things, he is responsible for standardizing the Guardian costume, especially the wide-brimmed felt hat, the shirt with its typical Provencal pattern, and the black velvet vest. In fact, the Camargue is a vast natural park covering over 86,000 hectares. At the far end of these wild spaces extends Hubert Yonet's territory. As president of the guild and also the director of the arena, he manages one of the oldest ranches in the region.
Here you are at Belugue. The Belugue is a ranch dating back to the 15th century and one of the closest to the sea. As you know, the Camargue forms a triangle. You have Arles in the north, Sainte-Marie, Salins-de-Giraud, and us. Beyond us, there is only the Salt Marshes and the sea.
Because of its geography, the Camargue is ideal for producing salt. Since antiquity, seawater has been treated here to produce that crystalline substance which has been coveted for so long. The seawater flowing into the basins contains less than 30 grams of salt per liter. Through a succession of lower basins, the salinity is quickly doubled. Then the sun and wind further evaporate the brine, thus attaining up to 250 grams per liter in just a few months. One of the oldest salt production sites on the Mediterranean, the Salt Marshes of Aigues-Mortes, still provide over a third of the salt consumed in France. Camargue salt is formed of tiny, very light crystals. Today, as in the past, salt workers still gather it in by hand. In the region's ecosystem, the salt marshes play an important part. Among other things, they provide a home for colonies of terns and pink flamingos. In the Camargue, bulls and birds live peacefully together.
We also raise Spanish bulls. It was my great-great-grandfather who was the first to import Spanish bulls into France. We've continued ever since.
Sharing the daily lives of the bulls and horses, the Gardians can spot the ones which will be best suited for the Camargue bull runnings, and the best horses as mounts for the arena. There are a few significant events that mark the lives of bull breeders. For example, the Ferrade, which is repeated symbolically in the arena during the festival. It consists of branding the young bulls with the mark of the owner. The new captain of the Gardians, Olivier Thibault, demonstrates his expertise in this operation. The Ferrade is held in two phases. Using a trident, the essential tool for this work, a Gardian on horseback first separates the young bull from the herd. Then he prods it toward a group of Gardians on foot who take hold of the animal, flip it over on its side, and brand it with a red-hot iron. Calves are usually born in March or April. This is another important time in the breeder's calendar, with the weaning of the young animals from their mothers and penning them off. After weaning comes the castration of the bulls. This is to reduce aggressiveness between males and avoid fights during the mating season. Then it's through the Camargue bull running that they regain symbolically their lost power. Former captain of the Gardians, Christian Espelli, breeds bulls in a way that is typical to the Camargue.
This ranch is called Fanfon-Guierne. Mademoiselle Fanfon was passionate about horses. So she thought it would be a good idea to raise and tend bulls while riding on horseback. That's how she started breeding them. Very soon she hired my father, who was only a boy at the time. He spent his whole life assisting her. The lady had no heirs, so my father and his brother took over when she was too old to manage the place. Now that my father and uncle are retired, I carry on the business. I breed Camargue bulls. You have to differentiate Spanish ones very clearly because the two breeds are totally different. In Spain, they're bred for bullfighting. We breed them for running. The bulls are totally different. Ours are more slender, lighter. Instead of low horns, ours have high horns in the shape of a lyre. It goes back to their origins. It is thought that the Camargue bulls can be traced back to Crete. They are very apprehensive, very wild. The herd is about 250 heads, including bulls and cows. It's the minimum if you're going to live on Camargue bull running.
In Camargue bull running, the animal wears a cockade on his brow. Dressed all in white, the men try to grab it, take it off the animal while running toward it. More often, the cockaded bull butts his opponents over the barricades that separate the arena ground from the audience.
All the breeders are looking for that star bull, the one that the whole region will talk about. The bull they'll all come to see because that's what they want to see in the arena. That certain bull from a famous breeder who attracted attention during the last runs. We love bulls a great deal, even erecting a monument in exceptional cases. Just near here I have the one to Segren. He was the best bull we've ever bred.
Christian Espelli shares the love of his work with his father.
To be a guardian is, first of all, to love nature, love animals, and especially to live with them in harmony. It's also about being pleased when you're lucky enough to have animals with the high qualities required in our profession. I was in a profession I love and I enjoyed the work, if you call it that. For me, it wasn't work, it was fun. I was 16 when I entered the Guardians Guild. I was captain, 25 or 30 years ago, and my son followed suit. He was captain last year. I hope that my grandson will do the same in about 15 years. My great-grandfather was captain during the Revolution of 1848. He's the one who hid the banner of the Guild in his cabin, keeping it hidden away during the conflict between the church and the revolutionaries. All that just to tell you that the Espelli family has been in this profession for a long time. I think the Guardians Guild was the first organization to offer social assistance in France.
On the 1st of May in the morning, the Guardians and their mounts received the traditional blessing on the square in front of the church, Notre-Dame de la Majeure, under the benevolent gaze of St. George and the president of the breeders.
I'm the 5th generation. There was Joseph the founder, then Christophe, then Joseph, and then Christophe, my father. I'm the only one called Hubert. I'm the exception in the family. I have a son named Christophe and a grandson who is, again, Joseph.
The various equestrian games provide the Guardians with many opportunities to display their skills at horsemanship. The game of the Armbands opposes two sides, yellow and blue, the colors of Arles and of St. George. The object is to capture the band attached to the horseman's arm. Each side is alternately chaser and chased. The difficulty in playing this game lets the riders execute superb movements with their horses. Small, nervous, but docile, the Camargue horses are usually gray or white. With powerful legs and sure of foot, they're able to trudge over all sorts of difficult ground. It makes them ideal for working the herds. The saddle is a fundamental part of the rider's equipment. In the Camargue, it's made from very heavy leather and has a distinctive shape. There are still a few old-time professional saddlers. Founded in 1870, the Coeur family business carries on with its traditional activity. Louis Fator worked there many years before taking it over. In this workshop, he continues to turn out the equestrian accessories that the Guardians appreciate every day.
The Camargue saddle has a pommel, a cantle, side flaps, and a seat. On this one, the back panels are missing because I took them off. They go under here and protect the horse's back. Bourg-à-Larice leather is used. It's very thick and it's tanned with fish oil. It takes 100 hours to make a Camargue-style saddle. Old-time saddlers designed it. They're not like ordinary saddles. With its heavy, thick leather, made strong to resist the wet, swampy terrain, it's not a saddle for a parade. Here we use only French leather. It costs more, but it's better quality. This is a working saddle. Some say it's like an armchair. It does look like one because you're pinched in front and in back, but it's not comfortable. It's specially designed for working on horseback. The leather is sewn and cut by hand. Nothing is made with a press. Each bridle is personalized and made to the customer's specifications with the design he chooses. In earlier times, you relied on the saddler to help the horse and rider. Now, there aren't so many horses and so fewer saddle makers. We are some of the last ones in the region.
Situated on a hill that overlooks the Camargue, the city of Arles was founded in 1000 BC by Ligurian people. In 46 BC, Julius Caesar assigned retiring legionaries here, making up the Sextanorum Arelatae, from which the name Arles is derived. Among the vestiges of Roman times, the amphitheater now encompasses the arena where gladiators fought one another, or wild beasts. So the lion is an appropriate symbol for the city. Notably, it's found near this jewel of Roman architecture, St. Prophesum Church. With the fall of the Roman Empire, Arles had to protect itself from the barbarian and Saracen invasions. Fortifications were built, and the amphitheater was itself turned into a fortress. The city owes special recognition to Frédéric Mistral, the Nobel Prize-winning writer. He restored a certain nobility to the Provencal culture with its ancient and variegated roots. Another equestrian game where the Gardians excel, the game of the orange. It's very old, probably dating back to a time when Arabs introduced the fruit into Provence. It requires the aid of the girls of Arles and quick precision on the part of the horsemen. An ancient military training exercise, the game of aiguillette demands the same skills. Using a lance, the horseman has to target a ring hanging down. All this recalls the Middle Ages, but in fact it dates from the 17th century. The lance in the game of the aiguillette vaguely echoes depictions of St. George slaying the dragon. The legend of St. George arose first in the East, and then returning crusaders brought it to the West. He became patron saint of Genoa, Venice, Barcelona, and finally of England. St. George is usually pictured on horseback, wearing full armor, carrying a white banner with a red cross, or a lance, and as such became first the patron of knights and then of all horsemen. This is why the Gardians Guild chose him as their patron saint. On the Guardians' Day, a special mass is said in Provencal to honor the saint. The traditional women's costume of Arles is more than just an outfit. It's really a whole series of distinct clothing elements that vary according to age and occasion. Frédéric Mistral made this traditional form of dress popular in the 19th century. and it was commonly worn up to the First World War. Before she finishes dressing, an Arlésienne exerts considerable care in putting on her headpiece.
We are lucky to live in a region where we still carry on our traditions. If tradition is alive, it's not folklore. We still have bulls, horses, ranches. It has to be carried on, and that's why we go on wearing our costume for all important events in life. It can be for weddings, births, festivals, running of bulls, but also, sadly, for funerals. All the same, dressing takes a long time. I never timed it, but I can tell you it takes quite a while. You can figure on 2.5, 3 hours minimum if you count starching, pressing, pleating, and getting fully dressed with all the frills.
The most important part of the costume is the chapelle, that is the part covering the bust, because it highlights the Arlésienne cross. Carrying flowers, the Arlésiennes enter the arena for the final equestrian game of the festival. The game of the bouquet is inspired by the sparrowhawk. 3 horsemen take turns as the doves or the hawk, the first trying to grasp the flower bouquet held in the right hand of the latter. In the past, a real sparrowhawk was carried on the arm instead of the flowers. Like a knight smitten with courtly love, the sparrowhawk has to fend off his opponents to win the favor of his beloved. The Provencal equestrian games go back to an era when the Holy See of the Popes was in Avignon. At the beginning of this century, the Marquis Folco de Baroncelli revived them. So it is that since 1930 the tradition has been carried on. After honoring Frédéric Mistral and holding the benediction mass in the ancient Provençal language, equestrian games create the high point of the Gardians festival. The vitality shown by the Gardians during their annual jousts reflects the new spirit the profession seems to have found, due to renewed public interest in the Camargue and its customs. 50 years ago, some 30 ranches could be counted. Today, there are nearly 100. Among these customs, Camargue bull running is finding ever greater popularity. Maybe because it never depends on the death of a bull. In its own way, it shows how men can live intelligently with animals and by extension, with all of nature. As if forming a link between the human world and that of animals, the Guardian stands as a symbol for that hopeful harmony.